I think that's all set. So yeah, basically I am doing my second YouTube video ever. Figured I'd share. I was just talking with this guy named Jarrett, the soul of Jarrett on Instagram and TikTok. A really cool guy, and he inspired me to like create more videos and stuff. I was telling him some stories and adventures, asking him for some advice, and basically he was kid crying in the back or something, I don't know. Anyways, I just like figured I had some cool stuff to talk about. I think I do some interesting stuff. I'm like doing things differently more than a lot of people, and I wanted to share that and hopefully make some connections with people, make some friends, and just kind of share my story, inspire others to do cool stuff and plant apple trees. And I posted a TikTok the other day and someone said that it was Johnny Appleseed Core. that was funny. But I love it. I tell everyone I carry, I think I've got some seeds with me right now. Maybe I'll plant them right now. I've got some pawpaw seeds. That's a cool picture. Yeah. Anyways, not really. Now I carry seeds with me. Maybe I'll plant them right here. I learned that pawpaw seeds, after they dry out, the germination rate goes down to like 20%. But you just put them in the ground. So next time I'll keep them wet, but I still had them in my pocket. So now there's gonna be some pawpaws growing here, hopefully. 20% chance, 40, 60, 60% chance there's gonna be pawpaws here someday. Which is cool because they're doing a habitat restoration. And basically I made this account so I could just like get my thoughts out there. I feel pretty alone in my way of thinking. I know a lot of people who are in like the homesteading movement, entrepreneurs, and also like, I don't know, I feel like it's just like a bunch of groups that feel kind of isolated and that they feel crazy sometimes. And I'm like part of both, and I don't like to put labels on myself. I know Jarrett was also saying that too, but like I am a business owner. I have 2 businesses. An entrepreneur, maybe self-employed person. I don't have a bunch of employees right now. You know, I'll contract people for things, but like I'm that. And then I also like walking around with no shoes, and I also am health conscious and like want to eat clean, and I also am like getting into homesteading, and I also am questioning the narrative of everything going on. I also am like an herbalist, aspiring herbalist. I do a lot of herbal medicine. I carry a backpack with herbs and tinctures and remedies wherever I go. What else? I like to work on trucks. Well, I don't know. I am decent at working on trucks because they've broken down so much. It's usually how you learn. I like working with my hands, you know. I like planting blueberries. I like planting pawpaws. I like being outdoors. I want to be connected. I love being just outside and all that kind of things. And every type of, as my girlfriend says, and every type of thing like that. I just think eating fruit out in the wild is like the coolest thing in the entire world. And yeah, I just want to be more like that. I want to be like whatever good traits that the Indians had, I want to be like them. The bad stuff, we'll take that out, and I'll just work on being like all the good stuff, because they didn't do everything perfect, but you know, whoever history, the winner always writes it. Pretty much everything we've been told, I believe, is pretty much fake. It's been a lie, and I'm trying to just like really talk to God and figure out what I believe, and like what the right answer is really is what I'm trying to figure out. But anyways, as I was saying, this past year I have been able to do take some trips, and basically I was going to California on business to meet up with some land investors, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to California, never been there. And then I saw that these guys, Jamie and Shelby, the Live Off the Grid Dream guys on Instagram, YouTube, or TikTok, probably mostly Instagram, they were doing a workshop. I just joined their course, and I was just like, fuck, I joined it because I was just like, I just want to I need to do something new. I need to talk to new people. I need to put myself out there. I want to connect. I want to just like build some relationships. I wanted to do something different. And I was like, fuck it, yeah, like they're having a workshop, like I'll fly. I'm already going to California. I'm already like put this time aside from the businesses, and I was like, let me just go talk to them. So I went out to British Columbia, but the first thing I did was I made a detour. I also wanted to check out some land for my land business, and then I also was like, let me see what these counties are like. And then I was also like, what is it like to homestead out in the middle of nowhere? And so as soon as I flew into Spokane, Washington, and got a rental car, I ended up driving 1,500 miles and talking to probably like at least 30, maybe more than 30 people. But the first night I was there, I found this nomadic barefoot guy walking on the side of the road of one of the farms I was staying at. And we ended up talking for like 6 hours, and we had breakfast together along the campfire, and like we talked at dinner time and all that, and it was just like, it was really cool. And yeah, I just went out there and I was exploring land, so it's fun to go out there for business and stuff, but I just really wanted to know what it was like. I'd never been, I'd been out west once last September. I went out to Mount Rainier with my girlfriend, and we went hiking. We went like off trail, and because we saw this thing on our map, I was like, you had to plan the trip like really far in advance, and it was like a lottery system, this and that, and we just wanted to get in the park. And then we read on the trail map that was like, hey, if you don't go on the trail, if you're just like cross-country hiking, you can do whatever you want. So that's what we did, and it was wild. We went in like 16 miles. We went off trail like a couple hours climbing the sides of these cliffs, and I mean, like, really, it was almost straight up and down. It was like if you had your backpack on, it would rip you off the side of the mountain. So we were just like throwing it, 10 feet in front of us, climbing up the side of these rocks, grabbing onto like the moss and the wet and the slime and all this stuff. And then I would take hers and throw it over my shoulder, throw it up there, grab onto like a little tiny sapling and pull myself up the hill. And we got up to there, and it was like alpine blueberries. There was like these little minks or whatever, like prairie dogs. I don't know what they were. We saw some mountain goats. It was wild. I've got some pictures and videos. It was just super insane, and I loved it. It was so cool, and it felt like it was the beginning of time. It really did. We're out in this place where no one else was. There was fresh glacial spring water, glacial water from a stream. There's blueberries everywhere. It's just like, you're looking around. The only people we saw for that part of the trip was a bush plane that saw us running around. I've got no shirt on, and the plane comes down, swoops back, checks out on us, and it was just like, it was super cool. One second. I've never told a story like this to like anyone in public. Well, like not public, but like I just like talk to, my girlfriend about her stuff. But anyways, is that poison ivy? Yes, it is. Okay, so hopefully it's not on the ground. Basically, we are in Washington exploring it. Filmed like the beginning of time, and it's like, I wish I could just put a house here. I don't want to create a neighborhood, but I want to live here. I want to live in a shack up on this mountain. It was so nice. But anyways, that was the other story. I was going off to British Columbia. I didn't want to fly into Canada because I didn't know if they were going to do some weird stuff. So I just flew into Washington State, which is right next to Idaho. And I got the car, and I think the first thing I did, I went into town. I met a guy who had like a hot dog business. And because I was just like in the stores, I'm like, hey, I wanted to know what it was like. And I was just like going up to people like, hey, like people who looked like young and like they were hikers, people who just like looked like they would want to talk to me, I guess. And I was like, hey, like, what's it like out here? And they were just like, oh, we love hiking. I was like, what's the difference between Washington and Idaho? And I was trying to like get some insight, get some understanding about the whole place. And it was funny because all of the people in Washington that purposely lived in Washington were usually like leaning to the left, and the people who were purposely in Idaho, 30 miles away, were like leaning to the right. So, and they never really said that. You could just tell it was like the Washington people with the nose rings and the blue hair. And I met some cool folks. I forgot their names. I've got them on my contacts, but they would be like, oh yeah, what's nice here? I go into Idaho to go hiking, but the locals are a little, they're a little different. The locals are a little different. I go over to Idaho, and I would be like, hey, what's it like over in Spokane? Like, what's the difference really? And they're like, oh, well, we go into Washington because the minimum wage is more, and there's more economy over there. But I don't really live there because the locals are a little funny, and they were just like, it was just, you could tell. They're like, oh, you got to watch out for the guns in Idaho, and the Idaho people were like, you got to watch out for like the communists in Washington. So it was pretty cool. I met so many people. But anyways, I met him in the store, and I was just like, what do you do? And he was like, oh, I have a hot dog business. I go to concerts and live music, and I cook hot dogs. He's got a big cooler with him. He's like buying all this stuff, hamburgers, the whole nine. I was like, that's so cool. And I should really pull up a list of like the rest of the people that I met. And but yeah. So anyways, I left there. I went to like some store. I was talking to this guy. I was like, hey, what's it like here? What do you like to do? And he was like very fancy. He was a very fancy man. And I was like, do you ever go into the mountains? And he's like completely surrounded by like some of the coolest hiking in the US, in my opinion, like huge mountains, everything like that. And he's like, oh yeah, I don't really go out there, like I stay in town, etc., etc. So I made my way. I tried to go park and on top of this mountain where like people go skiing and stuff. And like once again with all the stupid regulation, I'm just getting all settled in, you know, having some reishi tea, like all this cool stuff. And like I'm about to put up a tent. I'm walking around barefoot, and like this park ranger comes. I'm in the middle of nowhere. I haven't seen anyone for like an hour or so. Getting all relaxed, ready to set up the tent. And this guy is just like, hey, like, what are you doing? Can I help you? And I was like, it's not one of those can I help yous where he wants to help. He's like, what the hell are you doing here? Like, you gotta leave, it's getting dark. And I was like, oh, I can't camp there. He's like, oh, you have to camp at the camp spot. And like, I don't know, it's just kind of crazy that, you know, you gotta pay $35 to park, $35 to camp, and then you gotta be watched by the park ranger the whole time. Meanwhile, there's hundreds of thousands of acres of open land all around it. But like, oh, that's a state park. So I learned that you shouldn't go to the state parks, and you shouldn't do it in Washington. I even paid to access the park. I did it the right way. I paid for my whatever, my yearly pass, just to be told to leave. And I was like, you know what? He's like, oh, all you gotta do is just camp down the road. And I was like, I'm not doing that. So I drove to Idaho, and I don't even remember where I camped. I think I was at a rest stop on the side of the road. It was getting dark, and I found these people in hip camp, and I ended up at their farm. And that's how I met the nomadic guy. He had a farm in New Hampshire. He had like 5 acres with a bunch of goats, or 5 goats with some eggs. Anyways, he was a cool fellow. I've got his number. He was very cool. Another barefoot fellow. That's how I knew he'd be an interesting guy to talk to. And I ended up leaving Idaho. I should really look at my notes to see what happened next, because I remember leaving Idaho because I had to go back to British Columbia, so I ended up driving through to the border of Washington, stopped back in town in Seattle, or no, in Spokane to pick up some raw milk. And because raw milk is legal there, and I got some produce and all that good stuff. And I drove and went through all these Indian reservations and got a cool knife, and I got a machete. I went to Walmart, figured it'd be cheaper to buy all the supplies and ship it back to Virginia than it would be to just like eat out. So I just bought a camping grill, I bought a cooler, got some big blocks of ice. They do blocks of ice out there instead of cubes, which is neat. It lasts a lot longer. It's a great deal. Everyone in I guess the Idaho-Washington border was a cool place to be. So as I was buying all this stuff, I was talking to people in the stores, and I was like, just like, what's it like? Did you like it here? Is there a lot of good hiking? What's the weather like? What's the difference between North Idaho, Middle Idaho, and Southern Idaho? And I met this guy. I'd have to find his name on my notes once again, and he worked at the sporting goods stores called North 40. And I was like, hey, like, I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between North and South Idaho? And he's like, dude, check this out. And this is like a testimony to being like, to just like talking to people and asking them for help, because they usually will help you if you ask them. And I don't know, I just like, it was so exciting. So there's this guy, and I was like, tell me the difference. He's like, hold on, check this out. They're kind of busy. He pulls up the computer, he gets a projector screen on the wall of the side of the store, and he's just like pulls up like Onyx Hunt or like Google Earth or something like that, and starts circling. He's like, right here, great hiking. Right here gets cold in the winter. This is where all the grizzly bears are. You don't want to go there without bear spray. Get some bear spray. This is where the rafting is. This is where they farm. Along here is really pretty. That's where all the wheat is. And he's like telling me, breaking down the whole state. And like, for a geography nerd like me and someone who like wants to know about an area, this is like the most helpful thing ever. I'm like, dude, that's so sick. Thank you so much. And I was like, isn't that Jordan Jonas guy, like from Alone? Like, I know I talked to him on Instagram before, and I saw him that he lived in Lynchburg, which is like, I don't know, 2 hours from where I live outside of Richmond. And I talked to Jordan. I was like asking him homesteading questions, and I knew that he moved to Idaho, and he was like originally from Idaho or something like that. Anyways, there's a guy that was working there. He's like, yo, that's like my boy. That's my boy Jordan. Like, we grew up together. He lives in such and such town now. And I was like, that's so sick that like this guy that I know, like a local celebrity, everyone's like, oh, I know him. They're like, oh, that's my cousin. Like, it was so wild, because like he's on TV, he's on Joe Rogan, and all of a sudden you like see him, like his friends, like at the sporting goods store in town. And this guy, I really should find his name. He helped me out a whole lot. Like, I follow him on Instagram. You might see this. He's a really cool dude. And yeah, it was just amazing. It was really amazing just being out there. And there's like some more people I met along the way. And yeah, so after I got all my stuff, you know, my bear spray, my machete, my cooler, my camping grill. I take a camping grill everywhere too. Can never go wrong cooking steaks on the tailgate, you know. um, but anyways, so I left there and I just made my way up to Washington, and I've got my produce, I got my milk. I'm having a good time. I'm driving through the Indian reservations, and there's like some cool towns I stumbled upon. And then I get close to the border. Actually, no, before that, I found out this land had been burned in a huge wildfire. And all of a sudden the trees were all dead because they looked like a bunch of pencils sticking out of the ground. But underneath was all this undergrowth. It was a nice grass like this. And it's because the trees were filtering out all the light. So there was just like, you know, spruce needles, pine needles, whatever, on the ground with really no grass. And as soon as they burned all the trees down, or accident, whatever it was, the grass came back. So they decided to put cattle there. So I'm driving 60, 70 miles an hour, what's 80, whatever the speed limit is. And all of a sudden I see all these cows in the middle of the road. And I'm like, what the hell? I just like slammed on the brakes. I was like, what are their cows? Like, I haven't seen a town in like a couple hours, probably, maybe, yeah, a couple hours. And there's these cows here in the middle of nowhere. And I pulled over and I went to the bathroom. Let's go in good old number 2. And then I see a nice cow patty next to me. I was like, this is the spot. We both decided to do it here. There's a bunch of nice wildflowers. It's all pretty. And I found all these cows, and yeah, it was wild how they just, basically it was federal land. And out west, you can lease or something, federal land, get a permit, and you can graze animals there. Someone just like got a trailer of cows, dropped them off in the middle of BFE, and decided that they were just gonna let them eat all the free grass, which I think is a really cool idea. It's wild that no one has to watch them. I don't even know how they find, there's no gates. Like, they're just everywhere, which is so cool. Or at least in that one spot. And then there ended up being a town like 40 minutes down the road in the other direction, but coming from the other way, it was like a couple hours. So I'm making my way to Canada, and I get to the border crossing station. I didn't really think anything of it. I was just like, all right, make sure I don't have anything crazy with me, you know. I'm just going to meet some people. And I'm like, hey, you know, how's it going? I roll the window down, and I'm kind of just like in driving direction. I got shit everywhere. And the guy's like, hey, like, where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm going to this guy's farm. You know, we're gonna go check it out. He's digging ponds. He's putting trees in the ground. It's so sick. And he's like, what's his name? I was like, Jamie. He's like, Jamie who? I was like, I don't know. Like, let me look. And I was like, oh, like Jamie Friesian, or I don't know how to say his name. Sorry, Jamie. But I was just like, I'm going to see Jamie. And he's like, Jamie who? I found his name, and I spelled his name out. And he's like, okay. I was like, yeah, they got this place. They bought 160 acres. It's so sick. And he's asking me all these questions. And like, long story short, he was just like, I thought he was going to ask me about like illegal stuff or whatever. And he was like, do you have any weapons? I was like, I have a machete. It's like, I bought this machete because I knew I couldn't bring bear spray. So I got a machete because I'm going into grizzly country, and I'm going to do some hiking too along the way. And he's like, okay. And he's like, do you have any, like, what'd he say? He said, tell me about your produce. And I was like, oh, I've got some watermelon. I've got, I think, 2 pineapples and da-da-da-da. And he's like, any apples, peaches, plums? And I was like, ha ha ha, like, no, I'm good. And like, I thought he was just joking because, like, I thought he was just being a nice guy. And he wasn't, because he was like, you're like not, you know, your failure to, like, answer these questions is like a crime and da-da-da-da, punishable offense. And I was like, oh, like, you're being serious. I thought you were joking, man. My bad. He's like, no joking here. And I was like, okay, like, apples, peaches, plums. No, I don't have any of those. And he was like, open up the cooler. I was like, all right. And I opened up the cooler, and he goes, you didn't tell me about the strawberries. And he's like, he's pissed. And I was like, oh, like, he also wasn't joking. I thought he was joking. It's like, oh yeah, I just got the cooler. He's like, what's with all the milk? And that was just regular milk. And I don't know, I was just like, I like to drink milk. And he's like, he was almost growling. It was kind of wild. Apparently it's like their job to like kind of throw you off by like saying dumb stuff maybe, so they can like catch you and see how you react. They try to ask like kind of obvious questions, or like, I don't know, maybe maybe, I don't know. I feel like at the end of that, he probably laughed and was like, ha ha ha, what's with all the milk? Like, I don't know, it just seemed kind of silly, but I know they're doing their job and such. But yeah, it was pretty wild. I didn't think it was going to be, I thought the Canadians were nice. He was pissed. I was kind of freaked out at the end of that. I was like, damn. He's like, where's your passport? And I was like, oh shoot, let me get my wallet. I was like, where's my wallet? I started freaking out. And I was like looking around. It was like right next to me the whole time. I couldn't find it. And I was just like, oh, I have my ID, my driver's license. And he's just like, I didn't ask for your driver's license. Like, like, this is Canada. Like, it doesn't matter here. I was like, okay. And then I got like my license. I put it in my mouth to go get my passport. And he was just like, I don't want it now. You got it in your mouth. So it was like, it was kind of funny. Hope the guy's doing well. Hope he gets a hug tonight. Etc. And every type of thing like that, as my girlfriend says. And yes, I got into Canada. I drove in there. I was kind of freaked out. I called like my family. I was like, look, he was just asking about the strawberries, asking me about any apples, peaches, plums. Like, I thought it was a joke. So it was like kind of funny. I told like everyone about that because I was like, these people are wild. And it turns out that on the way back in the United States, the Border Patrol was like, wow, they let you in with a machete? And I was like, yeah. He's like, the other day he turned someone around for a sword. So good thing you didn't call it a sword, because if you called it a sword, it's illegal. But if it's a machete, it's okay. Oh my gosh. Anyways, I got to Canada. I met the Off-Grid Dream guys. I met this guy named like Luke and Caleb, I believe, and like all these cool guys and gals. And it was just really inspiring going out there. Giving me a shit for a sippy cup, eh? Mad convenient. So I met the guys out there, and it was just incredible. It was really incredible just being there in real life. They're like, where'd you come from? And they're like, we drove 4 hours. We drove 6 hours from Vancouver. We drove from Saskatchewan. We drove from Calgary. And I was like, oh, I flew in from Virginia on the East Coast. And they were like, what the fuck? I was like, yeah, it's really cool out here. So I met everybody, and like they got the generators and the solar systems and the ponds and the tractors. They bought a Komatsu excavator because they were like, we don't want to hire an operator. We just want to like buy all the equipment and like have a machine here, which is like super sick. And yeah, no, like I'll have more energy if I do this video another time too. But like, I don't know, it's just really cool seeing it all in real life. They did like a farm tour, and they like showed me how they dug these ponds, and they're restoring the water table because they're gonna log the land around it. And hopefully this is interesting. If it's not, tell me if this is boring, tell me if it's cool. But I went to Canada, and it was amazing. And there's all these people that like, you kind of think everyone in Canada is like, Jamie just sent me a message now, sweet. All right, cool. I was asking him for some clips so I could post them up here. But I pretty much like thought they were gonna be like maybe like American personality, with like a little bit more like reserved, because they're not into like all the pew sticks and stuff. And then like actually they're like, everyone is like very freedom minded. They're like, we're living in this place, like our government sucks, like we want to be free, but like we have all these restrictions. And I thought that was really wild. But basically they're just like really cool fucking people. I love meeting them, and everybody else there is, I think the guys, I don't know if Luke was the ginger guy or the younger guy, the shredded dude with the necklace. I'll find his name. Super cool guy, man. It might have been Caleb. Anyways, I was like, who are these people? This is so inspiring. And they're like playing volleyball and shit. I'm like, this is super sick. And I'm a rambler, so I guess this is good for video. Maybe if people actually watch it. Hopefully you do. But I just, like I said, I met these people. I saw it in real life. I'm inspired. We all had like these talks in the farm tour, and I was talking over some food. I was telling about my business, and I was talking to this lady. I think she was a Japanese woman that lives in Canada, and they're telling me about all the snow and just like about the Border Patrol. And I was like, yeah, I found this book on like, you know, just like Tao, like energy, like life force, and just like retention, and just like being conscious about like everything, every type of thing like that. And I was like, she was like, oh, who's it by? And I was like, oh, it's by I think it was like if I have it with me. I don't think I do. Anyways, but I told her the author, and she was like, "Oh, that was my teacher." She was like, "Yeah, I haven't thought of him in so long. Like, I lived with him in Thailand or something like that." I was like, "This is crazy. I'm meeting all these people." I'm telling her about this like book that changed my life. That is like such a good book, and she's like, "Oh, I forgot about. I used to live with him on the in the community or something like that. Like, we used to like be in the Buddhist church or like I haven't seen him since the temple, like so casually." I was like, "This is so sick." Yeah, this is like so fun meeting people, and we're just casually talking. She like knows the author of this book. I'm like, this is so cool because it's a community, a hub of people that have common interests, shared interests. They want to grow their own food. They want to start a little community where people can come, a retreat. They want to do tent rentals. They want to eat berries. They want to bring their friends over for a bonfire. And there was just a lot of really cool conversations I had. And even I believe it was Shelby, his girlfriend. It was really cool talking with him and his girlfriend. She was telling me how she used to be like a city girl, and she lived in, I think, Vancouver. She's like, "I lived in a high-rise apartment. I wore fancy shoes. We went out to fancy dinners, like that kind of stuff." And she's like, "Yeah, then Shelby and his brother, they bought this land out here, and all of a sudden I'm living like off of a solar panel, walking around with no shoes, and like trying to like grow strawberries." They went from like this fancy lifestyle to being like just like rugged, and it was really cool. And it was like, it's also kind of cool to like hear that from a woman, because like guys are usually more just like, "Yeah, we're gonna go live in the woods." And she was like, "Oh, I guess I'm gonna go live in the woods. That's what my boyfriend wants to do." And she started a business. It was called Heads or Trails, and basically she organizes biking, like people who are doing mountain biking and races and stuff like that, maybe road biking too. And she organizes the events, and they go there with the trailer, and they put up the Starlink, and they go they're like the host of the event. They like put everything together, so when people want to do a race, like a Spartan race, it would be like the person finding the land, getting everyone together, doing the marketing and stuff like that. So if you're into biking, check out Heads or Trails. She was really cool. Shelby was really cool. Jamie was really cool. They're just people that are doing things very differently. They decided to take a risk, and I think a lot more of us should take calculated risks, because life is too short to keep doing the same bullshit every day. It's too short to stay in the comfort zones. As I've been saying since I was like 14, is talk to my buddy Gabe, you can't get stuck in the rut. Like, everyone's getting stuck in the rut. I guess words are like spells, so I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of people are just like, they get stuck in debt and bills and daily routine. You've heard it all the 9-to-5 hate, but like, I think it is soul crushing. We are not meant to be like that. And we're meant to be free. We're meant to drink spring water. We're meant to live out in the woods and eat walnuts and hunt for deer and have a watermelon garden and eat cherries and love each other and hug your friends and dance around the fire and go canoeing and build something and create art and inspire others and just do more than like. And people are like, "Oh, well, we need people working in the mines. We need people working in the factories." And like, we do need people working and doing productive stuff. But what about the people before power, before electricity? What if we didn't need this phone? We didn't need air conditioning because we lived in the mountains or next to a river. What if we didn't need, like, in this society, yes, you need someone to do that to keep it functioning, to keep everything going smoothly. But before all that, when your daily routine was pick some walnuts, pick some berries, go smoke some meat, go deeper on yourself and have a connection with our creator. Draw a picture, right? They're not worried about 401ks because they're like, because now people are like, "Oh, I finished work, but I got to do more. And I'm like, I have 2 businesses, so I understand that, but like, I got to do more. I can't do art. I've got to be a Bitcoin millionaire." And it's like this constant thing because the bills are always coming up, they're piling up, and there's always something more to pay for and like a new thing to buy and a new person to look at on the internet. And But back then it was like, oh, I got a buffalo. I'm fine for the winter time, you know? Let's go have a prayer circle. People then were like, let's go do some ayahuasca or something. Let's go talk to God. You know, let's have a ceremony. Let's say thank you. Let's go swimming. Let's make arrows so we can hunt. And sure, they might be like, oh, I'm worried we don't have enough food or something. But like, I don't know. I think they were doing pretty decent. I really think they were. I don't think everything is perfect that they did, but like, I would rather be like, they were like lions. Everyone now is grazers, and that's the way that society has set it up, because there's a bunch of people making a lot of money, and then there's a bunch of people who ain't getting shit, and they're grazing, which is like a cow, which they're constantly eating all day. They're constantly working all day, just like a cow, and they're getting a little trickle here, a little trickle here. The cow eats some grass, and they're like, all right, I'm full. And then tomorrow they gotta go eat some more grass when they wake up. But what a lion does is, and this analogy, I heard it from this guy named Subner, and he told me about it, relating to business, doing bigger deals, bigger business just moves and stuff. So instead of going out and cutting 1 yard, you know, $65 to cut some grass and grazing, go out and do a $50,000 project, flip a bigger piece of land, do something bigger, provide more value so you can get a big chunk of money, come back, regroup. So the Indians were literally like lions. Maybe someone was out foraging every day, but basically they would get the buffalo, say thank you, use every part of it, and then they could come back in and not worry about fucking retirement. They didn't have to worry about, is the water poisoned? They didn't have to worry about, oh, is this happening? Is this country, that country? They're like, we got a buffalo, we're happy. Let me go talk to Pocahontas over here. Let me go hug my children. They were more present because they weren't worried about all this stuff that the fake world wants you to worry about. And that's why they don't want us present and connected. Because when we are, we actually do something. We do things that are important. We're happier. But when you get bombarded with the news, and I fall victim to this, you know what I'm saying? I'm not perfect. I'm not preaching. I'm just talking here. Like, everything that you see that's negative online brings you out of the present moment, raises your cortisol, makes you anxious, makes you depressed, makes you worried. And then all of a sudden, the collective consciousness of everyone around you is all consumed in the bullshit. And they're like, oh, I feel so bad. Oh, I'm worried about this country, that country. Did you see that happen? And like, yeah, like a lot of it's happening, but why can't you just be happy? Why can't you focus on yourself and like those that are directly around you? Why can't you worry about your family? I wish we were back in little villages. I wish, and like a lot of people, like, oh, I just want to have my 200 acres and be by myself. Like, that works for you, that's fine. I want to have great people. I want to have a community. I want to be happy. I'm not saying like a cult. I don't want a cult, because that gets weird, because there's always someone at the top in power. I just want to live out in the country. I want to live out in the country and have really cool neighbors. I want to live in the mountains. The beach would be sick, but when you go to the beach, it's like, at least in Virginia Beach is just hotels, commercial type stuff. And it's like, I don't know, it's not my thing. You know, I think the cool beaches are like Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, like places like that. So maybe I'll end up at the beach. And maybe I'll finish that story about Canada and Montana and this guy named Keith that I met at a roadside spring that came from a logging family. And he told me when land was like $4,000 an acre or something, that everyone thought his dad was crazy for buying it. And now it's worth like $150,000 per acre. But that was in West Glacier. That was when I was going up to Glacier National Park to do some hiking, to do some exploring. I had the trail mapped out. I pulled up, and once again with the damn regulation. And well, that was in Montana, but I get up there and they're like, hey, did you register? I'm like, no. I was like, I'll register now. And they said, hey, well, you have to pay for parking. and then you gotta park in town and get a shuttle bus up to the park, and it's gonna be an hour and a half or a 2-hour ride. And I'm like, man, it's already like 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, whatever it was. It's like, I don't have time for that. I gotta keep driving. I want to see some more stuff. And so I decided to leave. I was like, fuck that, I'm not going. And instead of going into the park, I was just like, I made a little Instagram post about this too, and it basically was talking about how people are like, so they want them, everything is sterile. Everything is like, park in the parking lot, get on the shuttle bus, stay on the trail, you know, walk up the wooden steps, don't get your shoes dirty. And I said, screw it. So I pulled over on the side of the road, getting all antsy. I'm like, oh, I want to go outside, I want to feel something. And it was cold. It was warm out, but it was a rainy, foggy day, and the water was like glacial water. So I pulled over outside of West Glacier, Montana, and oh, it's so nice there. I got into my underwear and I started running down the side of the highway, and I got my phone, I put it up next to a tree, like a typical person of my generation, but I got up on this rock and I just jumped in. I originally was gonna swim into the water and get this cool video and like go across, and it was so fucking cold. I did a polar plunge, I got out. But like, that was more fun than waiting on a shuttle bus for 2 hours and staying on trail and walking up the handrails and not getting muddy and wearing your white shoes on the high. Like, I don't know, like everything, it was the opposite of sterile. Get off the highway, get in your underwear, jump into the water, say hi to the fisherman from Texas. I assumed everyone there was like, oh, they're a local or something. He's looking at me like, oh, this dumb tourist. I'm like, oh man, it's so nice here. He's like, yep. And I was like, I'm from Virginia, it's way different. And he's like, well, I'm from Texas. And yeah, this is my vacation. I was like, hey, yeah, brother, that sounds sick. So I just jumped in the water, and then I made it a goal. I was like, I'm gonna jump in every body of water I see from like now till when I get home. I'm gonna jump in it. And I did that in a lot of bodies of water, but I kept pulling over the side of the highway, and it would be like a cliff, and then it would be rocky, and it would be really shallow, and then it got deep, so I couldn't really jump in. But I was like, yeah, I just passed Flathead Lake. I'm jumping in. I just passed whatever river comes out of West Glacier. We're getting crazy. We're getting uncomfortable. We're gonna. Whoa. It's chilly. So I thought it'd be like a fun thing to do. And yeah. So that was another story. Met some cool people in Montana. I had some people tell me about the hot springs in Idaho. I pulled over, ready to go to the hot springs, and I ended up staying. I put up a Starlink. I wanted to test it. Everyone was like, does Starlink work? Does it not work? Can you do calls? Can you do text? Can you text an Android? Can you do a Wi-Fi call? Everyone's like, yes, it works. No, it doesn't. Sometimes it works. So I bought one. I took it with me in my suitcase. I took a Starlink on the plane. I had a separate suitcase for like a cell phone booster and a Starlink. I was like gonna get a generator just to use it. But anyways, yes, I set it up in the sunroof. I'm driving through Idaho, going fast. It's going the speed limit, but it was fast because it was in the mountains. I opened the sunroof on the rental car that I've been sleeping in, and I just put the Starlink rectangle in the rectangle in the sunroof, and I had to hold it. So I'm driving down the road, this windy ass road, for like hours. I think it was like 3 or 4 hours with no cell service. And I got the Starlink, and I had to hold it because if I let go of the Starlink, the wind would take it like a spoil and go whoosh, and pull it right out. So I'm holding the Starlink, and I'm driving down this mountain road in the middle of the night trying to listen to like a Tyler Childers song. And I pulled over. I ended up never had signal. I'm like, oh, let me write a caption. Let me post this on Instagram. It took me out a moment. I ended up staying on Instagram too long the next morning, and I didn't end up getting to the hot springs, which is fine because I had to keep driving because I had to stay on track to get my flight. And I accidentally went to the wrong hot spring. I drove like 45 minutes past the one that was right off the side of the road. That was like a quick little walk in. That's what I was gonna do. Plunge, make some content, and then like leave. And then I was like, well, I'm at the one that you have to walk half a day to get to because everyone has horses out there, and they take horses into the national forest. It was amazing though. So I ended up staying near where I slept, and I ended up finding some Saskatoon berries, or whatever else they call them. And I ended up foraging a couple Ziploc bags of fresh berries. And I can see why people pick blueberries over them. These apparently are more fiber, more nutritious and such, but they taste a little bit more raw, a little bit more earthy, a little bit more like dirt, but I would eat them in a pinch. They're good for you. I put them in a smoothie. That'd be bad. Or not bad. With some bananas. Make them a little sweeter and stuff. But anyways, I just thought it was so cool that there's so much abundance in an area where no one lives. There's berries everywhere. You walk outside, you have a beautiful river. You walk around with a machete and a raw egg, and you're eating some steak, and you're picking berries, and you're enjoying life. And like, you can't just like do that forever, like in the world we live in, but wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to have a river in your backyard? To have a natural spring? If you don't have that, oh, we can't all have rivers. Dig a pond. Wouldn't it be nice to have a pond in your backyard, and then you pick some berries, and then you go do whatever work you're gonna do, and you can still be part of this new whatever society. If we're gonna have it, you might as well enjoy what we can. So sure, maybe you're still going to a job that you do on the computer, but let's say on your lunch break or before work, you go feed the chickens, you go ride a horse, you go do a hike, right? And then you're happy. You want to do more good stuff when you're like happy, you know? Even if you have the worst job ever, if you like live out in the country and you have everything you need all around you to provide it for you by like the hard work that you put in, I think life's better. And then you're happier, so you're more inspired. So therefore you can you will be more creative, and then you can figure out how to get out of that shitty job. And that's what I'm trying to figure out now. I don't have a shitty job. I have businesses, but I'm not going to landscape and live in the middle of nowhere, but I'm trying to figure out, do I want to take it back. Do I want to live near the beach in some other country, or do I want to stand my ground here in the US, live in West Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, in the mountains, and have a farm, have a homestead, build an online presence, and invite those people to come over and pick muscadine grapes with me. Invite those people to come over and eat fruit, eat some ribeye steaks over the fire, talk about life, build a community. And by community, I mean you have cool neighbors, or you have cool people that can come over and you can talk to. By community, I mean just like you got your boys, like girls, whatever. Just like everyone is so focused on themselves because it's like gotta chase the dollar, and I get it because I want to buy land. You need money for that these days, but people are chasing the almighty dollar. They're like everyone is, a lot of people, excuse me, talking in absolutes, but like so many people are so worried about like feeding themselves and their family and like basic needs stuff that they're not creative because they're struggling. And they're not and then the people who start making money, who are like doing high ticket sales and they flip houses, or they're a real estate agent, or they're doing like banking, whatever it is, now they're like gotta stack the paper, and then they start buying like Mercedes and shit, thinking that that's gonna make them happy. And like, I've never bought a Mercedes, but I do know whenever I buy something, that thing wears off. Like, I'm not a fancy guy, but I think the people who are very materialistic, like if that's you, I have no hate, like do your thing. I'm not the person to judge, you know what I'm saying? But I think like people in general would be more happy if they had their shoes off, if they had great people around them, if they were doing meaningful things. I think people have lost sight of the simple things in life, and they've decided to go do this and like all this fancy stuff, and then they're like, well, I have money, and this money, I have to go to work still, right? I'm a banker. Let's say I'm making 200 grand a year, 300 grand a year. I don't know what they make. And they're like, oh, I got money, but now I got a wife and kids and a family, and I live in the suburbs. So they're not like, oh, I'm gonna start a farm out in the country, because they're like, I have to be here to do banking stuff. So they're like, well, I can't do that. That's my dream. What should I do? Well, I can't do things that make me really fulfilled. And this is just my observations. Well, I can't do this stuff that I really want to do subconsciously. I can't do the stuff that I can't chase a buffalo, because now we have property lines and states and all these imaginary things, and there's not just buffalo roaming around. So what am I going to do? I'm going to buy this car, because the car will make me happy and I don't have to worry about it breaking down. So they're like, well, I can't go out and chase buffalo, so I'll buy a Porsche. And then they start doing all these material things that are just like temporary, and it's like, I would love to drive in a Porsche, right? But I'm not gonna if I have 200 grand, I'm not spending on a Porsche. I'm spending on a farm. Everyone's different. Everyone can do what they want, but I still think that the person who's buying the Porsche, if they don't have a farm, if like that's their one thing and it's like holding them like back because they're just like, they spend everything on that, then I think that they do it as a cope. Because I remember working a job that I didn't like, and then it was weird because I always thought it was weird. People were like, oh, we buy things to impress people that don't care about us, and we buy things we can't afford, and you know, the whole thing where it's like we go to a job that we hate, so we buy things that we can't afford, so we can impress people that we don't like. And I thought that was crazy. And then all of a sudden I get in a job that I don't like, and there was these people that were just like real assholes to me, and I was like, maybe I should buy a nice truck. It's like, that'd be cool, because I'm not gonna go to Idaho or Montana because I have to work this job. Now I have a little bit of money saved up. Maybe I should buy a truck, because I can't go to Costa Rica because I gotta work my job. So let me just buy a truck because that'll make me happy. And then all these assholes that don't like me and I don't like them, maybe they'll think it's cool because they're making fun of me because I have an old truck, which I think is just retarded. Because they'd be like, because it wouldn't start, and they'd be like, give me shit instead of like being like, hey, do you need help? So I was like, yeah, that'll show them. I'll buy a nice truck. It was like a quick thought. I wasn't really thinking about it for a long time, but I just thought it was so crazy how like I never understood that until I got in that situation. I was like, why would I stay somewhere where I don't want to be so I can buy things that I can't afford to impress people I don't like? And that was a real world example of that happening to me, and I was like, I need to get out of this bullshit, because I don't need to put myself into debt to buy a truck to impress this guy that fucking does not care about me at all, or these guys that are giving me shit for having a 1988 Chevy. Anyways, it's probably enough for today. I'm going to let you guys go. I'll think of some more stuff to talk about. Maybe I'll make it shorter. Maybe I'll make it longer. Maybe I'll talk for 5 minutes. Maybe I'll talk for 55 minutes. So that's 46. Anyways, plant some pawpaws, plant some walnuts. Make some good memories. Drink some spring water. Walk around in the park. Cover photo. Cover photo. Anyways, that's crazy. Y'all have a good day. Peace out.